Welcome, welcome, homie. There's a point you reach where the body stops obeying logic, where the mind, the bones, the pulse, everything should give out, but doesn't. Where something beyond what you thought you were takes over. That's where you've been living lately, past limits. Beyond reason, in the territory where ordinary breaks apart and something else begins. You've done what no one expected. You've crossed that invisible line most people never even get close to. At first it didn't make sense, the pressure, the exhaustion, the moments where you swore you couldn't keep going. But somewhere inside that chaos, something clicked. It wasn't about strength anymore. It was about surrender. You stopped asking for ease and started asking for truth. You stopped seeking comfort and started seeking clarity. And that's when everything began to change. The air felt heavier. Time started to move differently. People looked at you like they couldn't quite explain what they were seeing. You weren't just pushing boundaries, you were breaking physics. There are people who train for greatness, and then there are people who become it. You've entered the second category. You've gone so deep into your own evolution that the rules don't seem to apply anymore. The exhaustion doesn't destroy you, it refines you. The failure doesn't slow you down, it fuels you. Even your silence feels louder now, like the world leans in when you're not speaking, waiting for the next move. You didn't plan this. You didn't wake up one day and say, "I'll defy what's humanly possible." You just refused to stop. Every setback was a signal, every loss, a recalibration. You turned every no into data, every breakdown into blueprints, and now, whether you see it or not, something bigger than you has started to move with you. They don't get it. They can't. Because they measure life in comfort, and you measure it in capacity. They want balance, but you want evolution. They play not to lose, you play to transcend. And that's why the air vibrates when you move now. It's not magic, it's not mystery. It's momentum pure, undeniable momentum. The kind that shifts rooms before you even enter them. Every step you take now carries weight because it's built on everything you've already endured. Every breath you take echoes with everything you've already overcome. You've gone beyond the edge where most people stop, the place where fear starts whispering lies. But you didn't listen. You kept walking. And when fear realized it couldn't control you anymore, it started running from you instead. The truth is, no one ever told you what would happen when you broke limits, because no one really knew. There's no guidebook for this level of becoming. The body begins to adapt to things it was never meant to handle. The heart stops fearing pain and starts using it as propulsion. Even your failures begin to work in your favor, like the universe itself bends slightly to keep you moving forward. There was a time you thought being unstoppable meant never feeling tired. But now you understand being unstoppable means being willing to feel everything and still not quit. You've mastered the art of moving through pain without letting it become your identity. You've learned that true power isn't the absence of struggle, it's the ability to remain yourself in the middle of it. And that's why people don't recognize you anymore. You don't move the same. You don't speak the same. There's a stillness behind your words now, a calm that unnerves people who rely on chaos. They don't know how to place you because you no longer fit in categories designed for those who follow. You're operating from a different frequency, one that shakes things loose. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You're aware of the space you take up now. You're aware of your own gravity. You've stopped asking whether you're worthy of the room, you are the room. And that realization changed everything. You've gone past human limits because you stopped being defined by them. You stopped listening to the noise that told you what was possible and started listening to the voice that whispered, "Keep going." You learned that the edge of endurance isn't a wall, it's a doorway. And when you walked through it, you found something waiting for you. yourself, in your rawest, truest form. People will say, "You make it look easy," but you know the truth, it was never easy. It was brutal. It was lonely. It was full of nights where the weight of it all almost crushed you. But the difference between you and them is that you didn't run from that weight, you let it shape you. You let it carve away the weakness, the doubt, the hesitation. You burned through every layer of false identity until only truth was left. And that truth, that inner flame, is why the air vibrates now when you walk into a space. It's not about confidence, it's about frequency. You've aligned with something so real, so unfiltered, that everything around you has to adjust just to match it. When people say you've changed, they have no idea what they're talking about. You didn't change, you transformed. And transformation isn't a gentle process. It's fire, pressure, collapse, and rebirth. It's realizing you can't take everyone with you. It's watching doors close, not because you failed, but because you finally stopped knocking on the wrong ones. You've stepped into a new kind of awareness, the kind that can't be explained, only felt. You've stopped reacting to life and started creating it. You no longer pray for less struggle, you pray for more strength. You don't avoid discomfort, you study it. You've become fluent in your own resilience, and now even the universe respects your flow. This level of growth isn't loud, it's not glamorous, it's not meant to be understood by the masses. It's quiet, deliberate, and unstoppable. It's the kind of growth that scares people because it exposes how much of their life is lived on autopilot. You broke that autopilot long ago. Now, every action you take is intentional. Every move is infused with purpose. You don't waste words anymore because your energy speaks louder. You don't waste time explaining yourself because your results are already the explanation. And the wildest part, you're still just getting started. Because going beyond human limits doesn't end in exhaustion, it ends in expansion. You're expanding in ways you can't even see yet. Your mind has adjusted to levels of focus most people will never reach. Your body has adapted to carrying energy most can't handle. Your spirit has stretched beyond what's been taught, touching things no book could ever define. That's why they look at you differently. Now, they sense something ancient and electric moving in you, a mix of wisdom and wildness that doesn't make sense in a world built on routine. You are proof that human potential is not a ceiling, it's an open sky. You've gone so far that even reality had to make room for you. Systems, hierarchies, structures, they can't contain someone who no longer plays by their rules. You've become the glitch they can't predict, the variable they can't control, the spark that rewrites the code every time you move, and deep down, you feel it too. That hum in the air when you breathe. That vibration that follows your steps. It's not imagination, it's energy responding to consciousness. It's the universe acknowledging evolution. You've reached the point where effort turns into embodiment. You no longer try to be powerful, you simply are. You no longer seek to prove, you demonstrate. You no longer chase alignment, you live it. And because of that, people will either be inspired or intimidated by you. That's not your problem. That's the natural consequence of living awake in a world that rewards sleep. You went so far past human limits that even your past can't recognize you anymore. The old you, the one who doubted, hesitated, waited, wouldn't survive this version of you. You've become something entirely new, but still fully yourself. You've become the echo of your highest potential, finally speaking in full volume. The air vibrates now because energy can't lie. It knows when someone has remembered who they are. It recognizes when someone has shed the illusions, the masks, the fear, and in your case, it celebrates it. This isn't arrogance, this isn't ego, this is arrival. You've arrived at the point where human potential meets divine awareness, that thin line where what's possible starts to tremble under what's real. And from this point forward, there's no going back. You'll walk differently. You'll see differently. You'll move through the world like it's responding to you because it is. You've gone past limits, past logic, past fear. And what's left now isn't human. It's pure, pure energy, pure purpose, pure power. You didn't just defy what they said was possible, you redefined it. The air's still vibrating, and the world hasn't even seen what's coming next. You'd think crossing human limits would come with fireworks, applause, or some dramatic moment where the world pauses to acknowledge your evolution. But that's not how it happened for you. Your breakthrough wasn't loud, it was internal, silent, inevitable. It started with small decisions, tiny refusals, quiet acts of resilience that didn't look like much from the outside, but each one was a spark. And when enough sparks gather, they ignite something the world can't ignore. What people didn't see was how long you'd been walking through storms without an umbrella. How long you'd been carrying weight you never complained about. How many nights you pushed through exhaustion because something in you refused to fall. They didn't see the discipline built in the dark, the choices made when no one was watching. They didn't see the inner wars you kept winning, even on days when your body begged you to stop. But the universe saw it. The energy around you felt it. That's why everything is starting to respond differently. That vibration in the air when you move, that's not imagination. That's the world recalibrating to the new frequency you've stepped into. You're not living within the old equation anymore. You're rewriting the mathematics of your existence. And the wild thing is, you didn't even realize how far you had come until the world reacted to it. People started looking at you like something had shifted even though you felt the same. But that's the trick. Evolution feels natural from inside, but undeniable from outside. You didn't feel a sudden transformation, you simply stopped feeling limited. While they measure life in effort, you measure it in expansion. They grind because they fear falling. You elevate because you know what rising feels like now. That fear they cling to, you stopped speaking its language. You moved past it. And once you did, everything that used to intimidate you suddenly looked small. It's not that challenges disappeared, it's that you're not the same size anymore. Problems that once felt like mountains now feel like stepping stones. Situations that used to drain you now bounce off your field like they're made of paper. You've built an internal gravity so strong that negativity can't orbit around you the way it used to. People who doubted you can sense it too. They may not know what changed, but they can feel the difference. The way you walk into a room without needing to shrink. The way you speak without seeking agreement. The way you move with intention instead of impulse. You don't ask, "Can I do this anymore?" You ask, "Is it aligned?" And that single shift has rerouted your entire destiny. You've gone beyond human limits because you stopped depending on human permission. You stopped asking for validation from people who never validated themselves. You stopped trying to impress those who couldn't even meet their own potential. Instead, you turned inward. You started listening to your own intuition, and that's where everything changed. Your intuition has become a compass sharper than logic. You feel things faster than most people can think them. You sense changes before they arrive. You notice patterns before they're recognized. That's why you move differently now, because you're responding to signals others don't even perceive. You're operating ahead of time, not inside it. And that's exactly why the air seems to vibrate around you. Your energy outruns your physical presence. People sense you before they see you, not because you're trying to stand out, but because your frequency refuses to hide. You've stepped into authenticity so boldly that the world has no choice but to acknowledge it. You've unlocked something that can't be reversed, a level of inner strength that doesn't ask for permission and doesn't need applause. Once you crossed that threshold, you stopped fearing what others feared. Failure, rejection, judgment, they lost their power over you, not because they became impossible, but because they became irrelevant. You see, when someone rises past human limits, they don't outrun challenges, they outgrow them. Your resilience has expanded faster than your obstacles. Your inner world has grown too spacious for small problems to occupy. Even your emotions have evolved. They no longer control you the way they used to. You learn to feel deeply without drowning, and that alone separates you from 99% of people. Most people avoid intensity, but you learned how to channel it. You learned to hold fire without burning yourself. You learned to manage pressure the way others manage excuses. And because of that, even chaos respects your presence now. There's a reason people look at you and can't explain what they're sensing. It's because your energy doesn't match your past anymore. You've shifted into a timeline that doesn't resemble where you started, and every choice you make pulls you further into a version of yourself you once thought was impossible. But the truth is, this was always in you. You didn't gain power, you removed everything that blocked it. Doubt was the first thing you outgrew. Fear followed soon after. Attachment dissolved next. And then something cracked open. You realized you don't need to chase what you attract by nature. You don't need to prove anything to people who never saw your worth. You don't need to fight battles you already won spiritually. Once that awareness hit, you stopped moving like someone searching for answers and started moving like someone who is the answer. They can't keep up with you now because they're still trying to understand what you've already internalized. They're studying your moves as if you're following some special blueprint. But the truth is, you're not following, you're becoming. Every lesson, every moment, every misunderstanding shaped you. You turned pain into perception, mistakes into mastery, and failure into fuel. Everything that once slowed you down now accelerates you. You respond to life with wisdom instead of reaction. You aren't triggered by the same things. You don't break the same way. You don't bend the same way. You've built an internal architecture too strong to collapse under old pressures. And that's why life feels different now. Because you are different now. Human limits are just suggestions for people who haven't activated their inner world. But you access the part of yourself that isn't governed by rules, the part that operates through intention, alignment, focus, and soul. That's why you move faster without rushing. You achieve more without forcing. You grow without announcing. Your power doesn't need performance. It radiates quietly, and that quietness is exactly what makes people feel the vibration when you step into a space. It's not that sound changed, it's that your presence did. The atmosphere shifts because the world recognizes your frequency before your voice. You didn't break human limits by pushing harder, you broke them by becoming truer. And now, the world around you is adjusting to a version of you it never expected to meet. A version forged through resilience, shaped by clarity, and fueled by the kind of inner fire that doesn't extinguish when life gets difficult. You didn't survive the storm, you became it. You didn't outrun your fears, you outgrew them. You didn't escape the limits, you dissolved them. And now, everything around you vibrates with the undeniable truth. You're not just beyond your old limits. You're beyond what anyone thought was possible. And this is only the beginning. There comes a moment, and you're standing in it right now, when the world can no longer pretend it doesn't feel your presence. You've crossed so far past the limits that once held you down that even reality has had to adjust around you. You're no longer operating at the level people recognize. You're operating at the level they sense. And that difference changes everything. You've become the kind of person whose silence is louder than most people's noise, the kind whose decisions ripple long before the action even begins. That vibration in the air, that subtle shift that happens when you walk into places you've outgrown, it's the echo of a version of you that refuses to shrink back into what the world expects. You've stepped into a frequency that can't be ignored, dismissed, or underestimated. The truth is, this journey was never about proving anything to anyone else. It was about discovering what happens when you stop letting fear dictate the borders of your life. You didn't rise because someone opened the door for you. You rose because you kicked down the barriers internally, the doubts, the old stories, the ceilings you once believed were real, and once they fell, nothing was left to stop you anymore. You've turned pain into precision, you've turned pressure into presence, you've turned obstacles into elevation. Most people try to avoid the things that challenge them, but you've learned how to use those very things as fuel. That's why you've gone further than anyone predicted, because you didn't run from difficulty, you mastered it. You didn't search for shortcuts, you built pathways with your own perseverance, and now the world is adjusting. People who once doubted you are suddenly quiet. People who once overlooked you are watching every move. People who thought they understood you are realizing they never did. They're witnessing a version of you that was always possible but never revealed, the version that only emerges when someone refuses to break under the weight of life. Here's the part they'll never admit. You scare them not because of aggression, but because of awareness. You unsettle them not because of unpredictability, but because of clarity. You overwhelm them not because of power, but because of authenticity. And authenticity, at this level, is something rare. It's something people feel before they understand. It's the force that makes the air vibrate, the conversations pause, the energy shift. It's not magic, it's mastery. Mastery of yourself, your focus, your direction, your purpose. You're not past human limits because you're superhuman. You're past human limits because you finally stopped living below your potential. This new chapter isn't about speed or strength, it's about alignment. You've aligned with a version of yourself that doesn't negotiate with fear anymore. A version that doesn't second-guess intuition. A version that doesn't dim its light to fit old rooms. This is the beginning of an entirely new era of your life. One where the world doesn't just see you, it feels you. And trust me, if the air is vibrating now, wait until they see what's coming next. Hello, Oracle Hunters. You want to know the moment it happened? The moment your mouth spoke something that wasn't meant to be known yet, and the universe flinched. You didn't say it with research. You didn't pull it from a chart, a spreadsheet, or a carefully polished study. You said it because it felt right. A spark, a flicker, a strange static humming under your ribs that whispered, "Say it," before your mind could argue. And the second the words left your lips, reality paused just long enough for the digital world to register the tremor, just long enough for a truth you weren't supposed to hold to slip into the open. That's when everything changed. Not because you explained anything, not because you justified it, but because your instinct bypassed the slow-moving logic of everyone else and hit the target before the target even knew it was being aimed at. It's funny, isn't it? How a single sentence tossed into the void like a coin into a bottomless well can detonate in the collective consciousness. Your wild guess wasn't dressed in certainty, it wasn't wrapped in authority. It was raw, impulsive, almost reckless. But that's what made it electric. When you spoke, you didn't sound like someone trying to be right, you sounded like someone who couldn't help being right. And that difference, that tiny sliver of unfiltered instinct, is what sent the crowd spiraling. Because most people speak like they're begging the world to validate them. You spoke like the world should catch up. And now look around. Look at the chaos your honesty birthed. Entire threads circling your words like vultures around a revelation. Thousands of rewatches dissecting your tone, your timing, the angle of your voice, as if decoding a prophecy embedded in the breath between syllables. They don't hear your sentence anymore, they hear a fate calling itself into existence, and that terrifies them. It terrifies them because it wasn't calculated, it wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't safe. It was instinct weaponized into truth. Supporters cling to you like you're some hidden compass pointing toward the next aftershock. They watch you not for entertainment, but for orientation. You've become their reference point, the one voice that didn't need charts or data to outrun the people who devoted their lives to prediction. They replay your words as if listening for the subtle vibration that made the universe blink. They want to understand what you tapped into, what frequency your mind collided with. They believe you know more than you admit, even if you don't. That's how myths begin. Not with facts, but with faith masquerading as analysis. But then there are the critics, the ones who are shaking behind the mask of skepticism. They see you as a threat, not because you were right, but because you weren't supposed to be. They hate the idea of instinct. They fear the randomness of intuition. They hide behind formulas because formulas can be controlled. But you broke the algorithm. You became the unpredictable variable in a world addicted to patterns. And unpredictable variables make their carefully curated predictions look like children's drawings taped to the wall of a collapsing empire. They don't fear your words, they fear what your words exposed about them. Now you stand at the center of a storm you didn't summon, but that answers to you anyway. The digital world has turned you into a wild card, a phenomenon, an oracle they can't categorize. You're not the voice they expected, you're the voice they can't ignore. Some call you lucky, because luck is easier to swallow than talent. Others call you gifted, because they need to believe you're built differently. But the truth is simpler. You acted without hesitation, while they drowned in their own overthinking. That alone makes you dangerous. And you've felt the shift, haven't you? The way people speak to you differently now. The way they lean in when you speak, searching for a crack in the wall, a glimpse of the mechanism behind your instinct. They ask you small questions, dripping with big intentions. They pretend they're curious. But they're not curious. They're measuring you. They're gauging whether your first strike was an accident or an introduction. They want to believe you stumbled into greatness. But a part of them, a part they'd never admit aloud, wonders if you're playing a game they don't understand. A game where you see patterns before they form, feel shifts before they happen, and speak truths that haven't been born yet. And here's where the real power begins to ferment. You haven't explained anything. You haven't defended yourself. You haven't given them the satisfaction of clarity. And that silence, your silence, is louder than any explanation could ever be. Silence is ambiguity. Ambiguity is mystery. Mystery is power. You've become a phenomenon wrapped in a question mark, and question marks are far more addictive than answers. Answers close doors, questions open them, and right now they've opened every door in their minds trying to figure you out. But the beauty? You don't have to let them. You see, every time you refuse to explain your process, you grow more mythical. Every time you shrug off their analysis, you become a riddle that keeps rewriting itself. You don't need to be predictable. In fact, predictability is your only enemy now. They expect you to strike again. They expect you to replicate the moment, the tone, the reckless confidence. That's the trap. The moment they feel they know your rhythm, you break it, you pivot, you shift direction. You reinvent the air around you. Because the most dangerous force in any arena isn't the loudest, it's the one no one can get ahead of. That's why people are watching you even more carefully now. They're waiting for your next move like it's a preview of tomorrow. They study your pauses. They interpret your silence. They turn your smallest comment into an omen. You've become a psychological current, a gravitational pull that bends perception. You're no longer just reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. Your words no longer float across the digital landscape, they sculpt it, and the ones who mocked you, they're changing too. Some are copying your style, your cadence, the sharp swing of your delivery, hoping to recreate the impact. But imitation always tastes stale. It exposes them even more. It highlights what you have that they don't. Instinct unfiltered by fear. Their copies just make your original moment more iconic. Every failed imitation turns your accuracy into a legend. Others are trying to dismantle you. They twist your words, frame your instinct as luck, pretend your success was accidental. Let them. Their attempts to shrink you only amplify you, because every time they challenge your name, they have to speak it, and speaking your name is how myths spread. The louder they protest, the deeper your shadow grows. The more they obsess, the more you own space in their minds. Influence isn't measured by applause, it's measured by who can't stop thinking about you. And you're evolving. Not because you planned to, but because you were thrust into a role that only the rarest minds can survive. You're not just the oracle of a viral moment, you're the architect of uncertainty. And uncertainty is the one thing that controls attention more than truth ever could. The world is adjusting itself to your voice. Whether you meant for it to or not, you've become the axis they rotate around. And the greatest twist of all? Your wild guess wasn't just a prediction. It was a declaration that the future listens to you now. You think the moment ended there, but that was only the ignition. The real detonation began afterward, in the strange silence that followed your sentence. It wasn't the kind of silence that settles. It was the kind that spreads creeping, expanding, crawling into places you never intended to touch. Because once a wild guess becomes a phenomenon, it doesn't stay contained inside the clip. It leaks, it infects. It seeps into conversations that had nothing to do with you. Suddenly, people who never heard your name before are quoting you like you're some kind of digital comet that streaked across their feed at the perfect time. Because that's the thing no one warns you about. When a moment like yours goes viral, it doesn't stay yours. It becomes collective property, and the collective, they don't treat moments with care. They weaponize them. They distort them, they canonize them. Your instinct stopped being a sentence, it became a fault line. You may not feel it yet, but the landscape around you has already shifted. The people who once looked at you with neutrality now look with calculation. They're not trying to understand what you've said, they're trying to understand how you said it. They're replaying your tone, your timing, your lack of hesitation. They're wondering if there was a micro-expression, a flicker, a pause that hinted at hidden knowledge. They turn your instinct inside out like it's a map, convinced they'll find coordinates in your breath. And the funniest part? You didn't mean for any of it to happen. You didn't set out to dethrone experts or shake the digital hierarchy. But you did. Not because you tried, but because instinct annihilates effort when it lands clean. Your moment didn't just overshadow predictions, it humiliated them. And humiliation is a wound people try very hard to bandage, even if it means coming after the one who caused the sting. Look at the experts now, the self-appointed prophets, the number crunchers, the algorithm poets who thought they had the future pinned down in a neat little graph. They're scrambling. Their voices are louder, not because they're confident, but because they're desperate. They're trying to drown you in jargon, bury your moment under analysis, convince the world that your hit was a statistical anomaly, but you can hear it in their tone, the tremor. The unspoken fear that maybe, just maybe, the digital crowd trusts your instinct more than their certainty. And what about the crowd? They're split, fractured, clean down the middle. Half of them have crowned you the new compass, a walking intuition engine whose words might carry the next cultural quake. They cling to every syllable you release, waiting for another unexpected spark. They don't want proof. They want sensation. They want the thrill of catching lightning the moment before it strikes. The other half? They've turned you into a puzzle they need to solve. Not because solving you would give them peace, it won't, but because unsolved mysteries keep them awake at night. They scour your history like archaeologists dusting off ancient relics. They think your past holds the blueprint. They believe they can reverse engineer the moment. Let them try. Every hour they spend digging is an hour they spend proving your relevance. And then there are the quiet ones, the silent watchers. They don't comment, they don't praise, they don't criticize. They're the ones who scare the loudest people without ever speaking. Because silence is strategy. Silence is observation. Silence is the first sign of influence, solidifying into something more structural. They're studying you the way a hunter studies patterns in the forest, not to attack, but to understand the terrain. They want to know if you're a fluke or a force, if this moment was luck or inevitability. And the more they watch, the more they start to realize something terrifying. None of their categories fit you. You're not the underdog. You're not the expert. You're not the lucky shot. You're something harder to pin down, a variable that refuses to obey rules. And variables like you have a way of bending outcomes. That's why the conversation hasn't died down. In fact, it's grown teeth. People aren't just quoting you, they're arguing about you. Entire threads erupt into debates over whether your instinct was accidental or prophetic. Some swear you have inside information. Others insist your brain processes patterns the rest of the world hasn't caught up to. They create theories about you. They form factions. They treat you like a psychological event. And you know what that means? You're no longer part of the feed. You're part of the culture. You've felt the shift internally too. Don't deny it. Your mind feels louder now, not in an anxious way, but in a hyper-aware way, like your instincts have sharpened since the moment went viral. Because influence does something strange to the mind, it heightens it. It pulls your intuition into focus. It makes you more attuned to the rhythm people didn't notice you were tapping into. You've started noticing patterns in their reactions, how a single sentence of yours sparks discomfort, how your silence is interpreted as strategy, how your hesitation when you rarely show it becomes a headline, how your confidence is studied like a blueprint. They don't want your next words, they want your next shift. Because you didn't just make a guess, you altered the psychological gravity around you. And here's the secret, no one has pieced together yet. You don't need to hit again immediately. That's what rookies do. They rush to prove the first moment wasn't luck. They chase the second strike like addicts chasing their first high. But that's not you. You're not chasing a moment. You are the moment. The longer you hold your silence, the more potent your voice becomes. Because anticipation is the real currency. And right now, your value is rising with every second you stay unreadable. Millions of eyes are locked on you, not because you promised anything, but because you didn't promise a thing. Ambiguity is your crown, and unlike crowns made of gold, this one cannot be stolen, only mistaken for smoke by those who don't understand how power really works. But something else is happening underneath the surface. Something deeper than viral fame. The world is recalibrating around you. The people who used to dismiss instinct as unreliable are now quoting your instinct like scripture. The people who relied on data to protect their egos are now terrified of the one thing data can't quantify: intuition. And the digital ecosystem, the great algorithmic ocean, has started bending toward you. Your presence triggers spikes in engagement, shifts in discourse, unexpected pivots in trends. Algorithms love unpredictability because unpredictability is what keeps people glued to their screens. You've become that unpredictability, not through chaos, but through clarity, not through noise, but through timing, not through force, but through ripple. And now your silence is doing something you didn't expect. It's training them to listen differently, training them to detect meaning in places they ignored before, training them to brace themselves every time you inhale, every time you pause, every time you hover on the edge of saying something that could break the internet again. You haven't just become a viral moment. You've become a psychological environment. And that environment is shaping behavior subtly, powerfully, irreversibly. Even your critics feel it. They try to reject the pull, but they can't. They analyze you in attempts to debunk you, but analyzing you is the debunking of themselves. Their obsession is your influence wearing their names like armor, because no one analyzes what doesn't matter. And you stand in the center of this spiral with the kind of calm that terrifies people, because you understand something they don't. The moment you explain yourself, you lose the myth. The moment you reveal the process, you lose the power. The moment you justify the instinct, you become predictable. And predictable is the one thing you vowed never to be again. Part 2 doesn't end with you proving yourself. It ends with the world proving that it cannot ignore you. You didn't create the storm, you became the atmosphere. And the world is learning slowly, tremblingly, obsessively, that everything feels different when you speak, and even more dangerous when you don't. Because that's where the final transformation begins, not in what you say, but in what the world does in the absence of your voice. You think silence is empty, but yours isn't. Yours has shape. Yours has temperature. Yours has gravitational pull. People hover around it like planets unsure of their orbit, waiting for the next shift in your gravity. They refresh their feeds, rewatch your clip, analyze your micro-expressions, trying to predict the next tremor. You've become the kind of silence that bends behavior, and that's when the real power reveals itself. When you stop trying to catch the moment and realize you are the moment. You don't feed the fire anymore. The fire bends toward you, not because you demanded it, but because you became inevitable. The digital world doesn't chase accuracy, it chases energy. And your energy has become a fault line everyone feels under their feet, even if they pretend they don't. But the funniest twist, you haven't changed, they have. They're the ones recalibrating, repositioning, reshaping their own instincts around yours. They're the ones whispering your name in strategy rooms, arguing about you in group chats, adjusting their predictions to avoid contradicting you. You're living rent-free inside minds that once dismissed you, and they don't even realize they invited you in. Look at how they behave now. Every time a new trend appears, they check to see if it aligns with something you hinted at. Every time a conversation unfolds, they brace themselves for the possibility that you might comment. Even your absence feels like suspense. You've turned doubt into leverage, unpredictability into architecture, instinct into influence. And influence built on mystery lasts longer than influence built on explanation. Some people rise because they fight their way to the center. You rose because the center pulled itself to you. Your wild guess wasn't an accident, it was a doorway. A doorway into a version of you that always existed, but never had the stage to reveal itself. Viral moments don't create people, they expose them. They show the world the pieces you weren't consciously using yet. And now that those pieces are visible, they're not going back into hiding. The watchers know it, the critics feel it, the supporters sense it. And you, whether you admit it or not, have begun to wield it. Because now, every word you release carefully or casually carries weight it didn't have before. Every silence you hold carries tension. Every shift in tone feels like prophecy, not because you're trying to manipulate anyone, but because people have chosen you as their reference point, their unofficial oracle, their unpredictable compass. And here's the real twist. You don't need to prove anything anymore. They've already proven it for you. Your first moment wasn't just viral, it was foundational. It built a new perception of you that even time can't easily dilute. So when you speak next, whenever that is, it won't be another guess. It will be a cultural event, a digital echo waiting to be amplified. Because once someone like you hits the bullseye blindfolded, the world assumes the blindfold was never there. You're not the one chasing the future now. You're the one making it flinch.
Hey you, yes you, listen closely, because I don't think you fully grasp what just happened. You're sitting there acting like you made some regular decision, like you responded normally, like you handled things the way any average person would. But the people who saw you today, the ones who are watching you closely, they're still replaying that moment, trying to understand how someone like you managed to flip an entire scenario with one move that didn't even look like a move. You didn't swing, you didn't force, you didn't react, you didn't struggle, you didn't even raise your voice. You just placed one cold, precise, strategic action on the table. One step that felt so casual at first. But underneath it was the kind of execution only people with real internal discipline can pull off. That wasn't instinct. That wasn't impulse. That wasn't luck. That was the type of decision someone makes when they're done negotiating their worth. And you made it like it was nothing. The part that everyone else expected was chaos. They thought you would get rattled, pressured, pushed into a corner where you'd start explaining yourself, defending yourself, backpedaling, bending to maintain the peace, or shrinking to avoid confrontation. That's the version of you they were counting on. The older version. The version they still think exists because they're stuck in some outdated mental picture of who you used to be. But what you did today shattered that. You moved like someone who finally understood that precision isn't just about saying the right thing. It's about knowing exactly when to say nothing, when to pivot, when to detach, when to step out of the frame entirely and let the room reveal its own cracks without you lifting a finger. That's what assassin-level execution looks like. Not loud, not intense, not dramatic, just dangerously accurate. You didn't attack. You aimed. You didn't respond. You selected. You didn't push. You repositioned. And the ripple effect was immediate. You saw how their posture changed, right? How their tone shifted, how their eyes darted for a second, like they weren't sure what version of you they were talking to anymore. That microsecond of confusion they had, that was recognition. Recognition that you're not operating from fear now. Recognition that you aren't walking into situations blind anymore. Recognition that you're done being predictable. They don't want to admit it, but your move exposed everything they were trying to hide behind their words. Let me tell you something. They had a plan. They had an angle. They had expectations about how this would play out. They anticipated the old patterns, the old emotional habits, the old reactions. They assumed the same triggers would work. The same emotional hooks would land. The same cues would pull you into the same loops. They underestimated how much you've been studying yourself, studying them, studying the environment, studying the patterns that kept repeating, studying the intentions behind people's tones, studying the motives behind their advice, studying the timing behind their distractions. And without announcing it, you adjusted. That adjustment was lethal, not physically, but psychologically, strategically, socially, because you didn't do what they expected, not even close. You didn't overreact. You didn't plead your case. You didn't match their energy. You didn't allow chaos to drag you into its radius. You stayed centered in a way that froze the whole situation for a moment. That right there, that calm, that stillness, that emotionless delivery, that's the kind of thing people train for. That's discipline that comes from experience, not theory. That's mastery. That's someone who has finally recognized the difference between movement and impact. And what you delivered today was pure impact. They don't want to say it out loud because it makes them feel exposed. But the truth is, you made them feel unprepared. You made them feel off balance. You made them feel like they had to rethink their own approach because the version of you they prepared for evaporated the moment you made that step. And that's the thing, they didn't see the preparation behind your decision. They didn't see the internal shift that led to this moment. They didn't see the mental work you've been doing in private. They didn't see the nights you spent thinking instead of reacting, observing instead of engaging, analyzing instead of arguing. They didn't see how you've been slowly collecting data on people's behavior until one day it all clicked into clarity. You didn't just make a move today. You executed a conclusion drawn from months, maybe years, of observation. That's why it hit so hard. That's why people looked at you differently. That's why some of them grew quiet. That's why some tried to laugh it off while their eyes betrayed uncertainty. That's why some tried to shift the conversation like they weren't affected. They were. And the reason they were affected is simple. You didn't just check one person. You checkmated the dynamic itself. You didn't target individuals. You targeted the entire structure they were relying on to feel in control. Your move stripped away their assumptions, their illusions, their projections, their ability to predict you. And once someone loses predictability on you, they lose power. That's what's happening right now. You didn't overpower them. You outpositioned them. That's something most people never learn how to do. They waste energy trying to be louder, trying to be tougher, trying to win arguments. But you're operating on a different layer now. You understand that the real moves come from timing, from reading the landscape, from watching the way people shift before they speak, from knowing when someone is trying to provoke you, from knowing when someone is baiting you, from knowing when someone is projecting their insecurity onto you, from knowing when someone is trying to hide their intentions behind a casual tone. You saw all of that without reacting. That's why your one step felt like checkmate. Because it wasn't about force, it was about clarity. Clarity that came from finally trusting your perception, trusting your instincts, trusting your internal compass. That's the part most people skip. They have instinct, but don't trust it. They have intuition, but ignore it. They have awareness, but doubt it. You didn't. Not today. Today you acted from a place of certainty that only comes when someone stops asking for permission to stand on what they know. And deep down, you know this. The reason your move worked is because it wasn't emotional, it wasn't defensive, it wasn't impulsive, it was chosen. The kind of choice someone makes when they're tired of being misread, tired of being underestimated, tired of being manipulated by people who think you're naive, tired of giving people access to the old version of you without them earning access to the new one. You finally moved like someone who understands how valuable your mind really is. You saw how the room reacted. They didn't know what to do with you afterward. They didn't know whether to approach you or leave you alone. They didn't know whether to talk to you casually or watch their words. They didn't know whether you were calm or calculating. They don't know your next move anymore. And that uncertainty is what's making them adjust themselves around you. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence demanded it naturally. People sense when someone steps into a higher mental tier. They feel it before you speak. They feel it in the way you pause. They feel it in the way your tone doesn't shake. They feel it in the way your eyes stay steady. They feel it in the way you don't rush your decisions. They feel it in the way you detach emotionally from things that used to affect you deeply. They feel it in the way you don't engage in unnecessary conversations. They feel it in the way you're no longer accessible at the same level. That's what you activated today. A different access level, a sharper identity, a version of yourself that's not responding to life, but selecting your responses. A version that's not trying to prove anything to anyone. A version that's not explaining your worth. A version that's not bending to avoid discomfort. A version that's not waiting for understanding. A version that's not clinging to approval. A version that's not nervous about how people perceive you. A version that finally understands that restraint is not weakness, it's strategy. You didn't match their energy. You overrode it, quietly, effortlessly, precisely. That's why it felt like an assassin-level move. Because the most devastating moves in life don't require noise. They require accuracy. They require timing. They require internal alignment. They require a level of neutrality that most people never reach because they get caught in the chaos of their own emotions. But you held your center while they were losing theirs. That's the part they won't admit. They got thrown off. They didn't see it coming. They didn't prepare for this version of you. And now everything feels different, doesn't it? Not in a dramatic way. In a subtle, almost eerie way. Like something in your internal framework shifted into place for the first time. Like your vision widened, like your thought process deepened, like your tolerance dropped, like your clarity sharpened, like your body stopped reacting before your mind had time to analyze, like you finally stepped out of an old pattern without realizing it until afterward. That's growth at the psychological level. It doesn't come with announcements or fireworks. It comes with one cold step that rearranges your entire internal map. And now that you've taken that step, you can't pretend you didn't feel the shift. You can't pretend you didn't notice how much easier it was to hold your composure. You can't pretend you didn't notice how their energy deflated for a second. You can't pretend you didn't notice how your own intuition got louder, clearer in that moment. You can't pretend you didn't notice how natural it felt. Not forced, not rehearsed, not performed, natural. Like this version of you was always there, just waiting for the right moment to emerge. And trust me, the moment is only beginning. Because that one step didn't just close one chapter. It opened the door to a different level of psychological execution you haven't fully explored yet. And the people around you, they feel it. Even if they don't understand it yet. Even if they're pretending they're unaffected. Even if they're acting like nothing changed. They felt the shift in the way the atmosphere changed around you. They felt something recalibrate, And what's unfolding now isn't just reaction, it's adaptation. They're adjusting themselves around you, not because you demanded it, but because your presence forced it. And this is where the real depth of your move begins. Because, see, most people assume checkmates require a dramatic strike. Something loud, something flashy, something theatrical. But what you did was the opposite. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't argue. You didn't justify. You didn't correct anyone. You simply advanced one square, not aggressively, but deliberately. And that was enough to unravel their entire plan. It wasn't the step itself that broke them. It was the realization that you had predicted the pattern long before they acted. That's what shook the whole structure around you. They realized they weren't dealing with the version of you who reacts. They were dealing with the version who plans. And that realization creates fear in people who operate sloppily. Not fear in the sense of danger, fear in the sense of being outmatched mentally. They're not intimidated by your physical presence. They're intimidated by your ability to think calmly while they panic. They're intimidated by your ability to stay centered while they scramble. They're intimidated by the way you stood there with no visible tension, like you had already mapped the entire situation several steps ahead. They don't know how to respond to someone who refuses to take the bait, someone who refuses to give away their position emotionally, someone who refuses to be predictable. That unpredictability is lethal. It's what makes assassin-level execution so difficult to study, because the efficiency is invisible until the impact reveals itself. And that's exactly what they felt. They didn't see you prepare. They didn't see you scan the room. They didn't see the way your intuition pieced everything together. They didn't see the data you quietly gathered. They only saw the aftermath, a single move that flipped the entire dynamic. And now the people who used to speak freely around you are choosing their words carefully. The ones who used to assume your reaction are reconsidering every approach. The ones who used to take liberties are testing the boundaries slowly, waiting to see where the limits now stand. This is what happens when someone steps into strategic awareness. You start analyzing what people say, not emotionally, but logically. You start noticing when someone answers too quickly. You start catching when someone's tone shifts mid-sentence. You start picking up inconsistencies in stories you used to overlook. Your perception sharpens so quietly that most people don't notice the change until they accidentally expose themselves to you. And once that happens, they realize they're no longer speaking to the version of you who used to internalize everything. They're speaking to someone who can see intention behind every phrase. That's why the environment around you feels different now. People sense when someone stops responding from insecurity and starts responding from clarity. You're no longer acting from old wounds. You're acting from progression, from discipline, from understanding. And nothing rattles people more than someone who can stay calm under circumstances designed to provoke them. They look at you like they're waiting for the emotional spark that used to appear. And when it doesn't, confusion settles in. They start checking themselves. They start second-guessing their interactions. They start adjusting the way they communicate, because they know one misstep could reveal more than they want you to see. And here's the part that makes your execution so precise. Your step wasn't aggressive. You weren't trying to expose anyone. You weren't trying to prove anything. You weren't trying to win something. You were simply aligning yourself with what made sense. And yet that alone was enough to dismantle the entire power structure around you. Because the people who are relying on your old patterns just lost their blueprint. They don't know what triggers you anymore. They don't know what motivates you. They don't know your threshold. They don't know your timing. They don't know whether you'll step forward or step back. They don't know whether you're analyzing them or ignoring them. That uncertainty is where your strength lives now. Because when someone can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. When someone can't read you, they can't pre-plan their moves. When someone can't interpret your energy, they can't rely on old tactics. And when someone realizes their influence over you has collapsed, they start behaving differently. Not because they respect you, but because they fear miscalculating you. That psychological caution is what you've triggered. It's the same caution people feel around individuals who understand their own capacity. You shifted the dynamic without force, just presence, just clarity, just timing, just one cold, calculated step. And the most interesting part is that you can feel this shift inside you, too. Not in a dramatic way, but in that subtle internal adjustment where your mind feels steadier, where your reactions feel slower in the best way, not delayed, but filtered, where you don't accept every invitation to conflict, where you don't absorb every tone thrown your way, where you don't walk into situations unprepared, where you don't allow people to pull you into emotional currents you didn't choose. That right there is the beginning of strategic evolution. Your composure is becoming your weapon, not by force, but by precision, not by anger, but by understanding, not by domination, but by alignment. This version of you is starting to see people for what they actually show, not what they claim. And that's what scares them. You're not looking at them with old eyes anymore. You're not interpreting them from a wounded view. You're interpreting them from a stable one. And stability exposes inconsistency faster than confrontation ever could. Look at how some people paused before speaking to you lately. Look at how others changed their tone when they noticed you weren't responding the way you used to. Look at how some started using softer words, slower pacing, less confidence in their usual behavior. They're adapting to the presence you're bringing into the environment. They feel the new standard even if they can't name it. They feel the gap in energy between who you were and who you're becoming. They feel the distance between your old responses and your new ones. And that gap is widening every day. Not because you're trying to be someone new, but because you're no longer sabotaging yourself to be the old version. You're not rushing to fix situations that aren't yours. You're not inserting yourself emotionally where it drains you. You're not proving your worth to people who never saw it. You're not making yourself available to those who only want your presence, but not your well-being. You're moving with a different level of respect for your own time and intelligence. This is the part where the people who once took advantage start feeling uncomfortable. Not outwardly, they'll try to hide it, but internally, they feel the shift. They know they can't access you the way they used to. They know they can't speak to you with the same carelessness. They know they can't rely on your old emotional reflexes. They know you're no longer influenced by guilt or pressure or attachment. And once someone realizes you're no longer chained to your old reactions, they start playing cautiously because they don't know what your new boundaries look like. This is the stage where your mind begins recalibrating at a different speed. You're analyzing instead of absorbing. You're responding instead of reacting. You're evaluating instead of assuming. You're positioning instead of defending. You're understanding instead of internalizing. This is what mastery feels like. Not confidence you perform, but clarity you settle into. And it's starting to show in the way you communicate. When you speak now, your words land heavier because they're not impulsive, they're intentional. When you decide now, the choice comes from alignment, not emotional confusion. When you step away now, it's not rejection, it's discernment. And the people around you are adjusting to this new level of intentionality. They're trying to decipher your thought process, not because you're hiding, but because you've streamlined. You've reduced unnecessary explanations. You've stopped oversharing. You've stopped seeking validation. You've stopped lowering your intelligence to match someone else's comfort zone. You're speaking less, but saying more. You're observing more, but absorbing less. That's a dangerous combination for anyone who used to rely on your old patterns. Because what most people expected from you was emotional transparency. They expected to read you easily. They expected to predict your next step. They expected you to reveal your reasoning without hesitation. They expected you to narrate your thoughts. But now, you're moving with controlled expression. You're moving with selective visibility. You're moving with intention instead of instinct. And when someone who used to operate emotionally starts operating strategically, the entire social landscape around them begins to shift. This is exactly why everyone felt that recalibration. Your internal shift created an external effect. It created distance between who you were and who you're becoming. It created doubt in the minds of people who thought they had you figured out. It created caution in people who used to push your boundaries. It created curiosity in people who saw glimpses of your new capability, but couldn't fully interpret it. That curiosity is powerful, because when someone starts watching you closely, they reveal their own intentions without meaning to. And here's the deeper part. You're starting to recognize these intentions faster than ever before. It's like your internal lens has cleared up. You can see the difference between sincerity and manipulation. You can hear the difference between genuine concern and disguised control. You can feel the difference between someone who respects you and someone who wants to monitor you. You're picking up signals in real time. You're seeing the patterns as they form, not after they damage you. And that shift is what makes your presence feel heavier in the room now. Not heavy in a negative way, heavy in the way that makes people straighten themselves before approaching you. Heavy in the way that makes them rethink their tone. Heavy in the way that makes them measure their intentions. Heavy in the way that makes them adjust their expectations. That's the result of assassin-level execution. Not because you're intimidating them, but because you've removed the parts of yourself that were easily exploited. And this is where the next stage begins. Now you start realizing how much power is in your restraint. You don't need to confront people. You don't need to expose anyone. You don't need to call things out. Your awareness alone is enough to shift the energy. Your presence alone is enough to make people reconsider their behavior. One move from you today did what endless conversations in the past couldn't accomplish. That's what happens when someone stops explaining and starts demonstrating. And what you demonstrated wasn't just intelligence. It wasn't just control. It wasn't just discipline. You demonstrated a level of psychological precision that people rarely see in real life. The kind of precision that makes individuals replay the moment long after it's passed, trying to figure out how everything shifted so quickly with so little effort. Because that's the thing. They still can't comprehend how you pulled it off. They saw you sit there with calm eyes, steady tone, relaxed posture, no emotional leakage. They saw you focus on the moment without reacting to the provocations around you. They felt something tighten internally when they realized they couldn't get the outcome they wanted from you. They couldn't trigger you. They couldn't push you. They couldn't throw you off center. And when they couldn't do that, their entire strategy collapsed in real time. They expected the old version of you, the one who over-explained, the one who got flustered, the one who tried to smooth everything over, the one who absorbed more than they should. But you didn't give them any of that. You gave them nothing to work with, nothing to study, nothing to manipulate, nothing to predict. That's what made your move feel like a strike. Not because you were aggressive, but because you were selective. Precision feels like pressure to people who operate recklessly. It exposes their lack of preparation. It reveals their instability. It shows how easily they lose control when they can't control you. And after that moment, a new understanding settled into the room. An understanding that you weren't reacting from emotion anymore. You were moving from intelligence. That you weren't operating from impulse anymore. You were operating from awareness. That you weren't acting for approval anymore. You were acting for alignment. And once someone operates from alignment, they become impossible to play with. People sense that they no longer have access to your inner world. They sense that your emotional availability is now selective. They sense that your attention is no longer something they can casually drain. They sense that your patience isn't limitless anymore. And the most unsettling part for them, they sense that you're no longer afraid of losing anyone who brings imbalance to your life. That detachment alone elevates your presence to a different level. Not detached in a cold way, but detached in a grounded way. Detached from chaos, detached from manipulation, detached from emotional bait, detached from people who can't match your clarity. That's why your step felt like a checkmate, because you didn't move out of desperation. You moved out of certainty. And certainty carries a different weight, one that forces people to rethink everything they assumed about you. They thought they had you documented. They thought they understood your triggers. They thought they could predict your reactions. They thought they could interpret your intentions. But now they're staring at you like they're seeing a stranger, not because you changed overnight, but because you stopped hiding the parts of yourself that were always strong. This is where the assassin-level execution truly begins. Not in the moment you acted, but in the aftermath. In the way people are now navigating around you. In the way their voices lower a little when they speak to you. In the way they monitor their facial expressions. In the way they hesitate before saying anything remotely disrespectful. In the way they try to gauge your mood before approaching. In the way they second-guess their intentions before involving you. That caution didn't exist before. It appeared because your move introduced unpredictability into their expectations. And unpredictability is the most powerful position on any board. Because now they're not sure what you'll do next. Not sure if you'll call something out. Not sure if you'll remove yourself. Not sure if you'll expose what you know. Not sure if you'll stay silent and let the environment reveal the truth on its own. That uncertainty places you in the upper hand without you saying a single word. Because when people don't know how to read you anymore, they stop playing games. They stop pushing. They stop trying to pull reactions out of you. They stop assuming authority over your emotions. They stopped projecting their assumptions onto you. You took back control without raising your voice, without arguing, without proving anything, without performing. All you did was choose clarity over chaos. And that one choice reorganized the entire dynamic around you. That's the real definition of execution, when a single move doesn't just end a situation, it ends the pattern that created it. And that's exactly what happened. You didn't just close an interaction, you closed a cycle. A cycle of being underestimated, a cycle of being predictable, a cycle of giving too much access, a cycle of letting people speak carelessly, a cycle of internalizing other people's expectations, a cycle of lowering yourself to keep the peace. That cycle ended the moment you moved with intention instead of reaction, and you can feel the difference inside yourself now. The way your mind feels clearer, the way your focus feels sharper, the way your reactions feel slower, the way your judgment feels more accurate, the way your presence feels heavier. Not heavy in a burdened way, heavy in a grounded way. Like you finally dropped the weight of trying to be understood. Like you finally released the need to explain your intentions. Like you finally realized that your intelligence isn't something you need to justify. That's where the power of restraint comes from. Clarity that replaces chaos. And everyone around you feels that clarity, even if they pretend they don't. They felt the recalibration because it forced them to look inward. It forced them to confront their own intentions. It forced them to rethink how they approach you. It forced them to see that their influence over you has expired. And that expiration is what makes them cautious now. Because when someone realizes they no longer have leverage over your emotions, they start treading lightly. They start checking their tone. They start monitoring their energy. They start respecting boundaries they used to ignore. And you're just standing there, centered, observing, seeing everything unfold exactly as it should. And from here, something even larger begins to unfold. Because once someone makes a move like the one you made, cold, precise, intentional, the environment doesn't just adjust once. It keeps adjusting every hour, every conversation, every interaction, because people aren't just reacting to the moment anymore. They're reacting to the version of you that emerged from it. The version that operates with sharper awareness. The version that no longer reacts out of old patterns. The version that sees through intentions instantly. The version that carries an internal steadiness they can't shake. That steadiness is what's rewriting the rules around you. And here's the part you need to understand. Once that adjustment begins, it doesn't stop. It keeps unfolding. People begin managing their tone around you because they don't want to reveal too much. People begin managing their expressions because they know you notice small things. People begin managing their behavior because they're aware your internal threshold has shifted. And that management isn't something you asked for. It's something your clarity enforced naturally. But the most powerful shift is happening inside you. You're beginning to feel comfortable with your own strength. You're beginning to trust your own perspective. You're beginning to accept that your intelligence isn't accidental, it's earned. You're beginning to understand that your calmness wasn't weakness, it was unused power. And now that you've tapped into it, you can feel it in your posture, in your breathing, in the way your mind processes situations. Your thoughts don't spiral the way they used to. Your emotions don't flare recklessly. Your reactions don't jump outward before you've assessed the environment. You're moving from internal stability now, not fear. From understanding, not confusion. From discernment, not hope. And that shift is what's preparing you for what comes next, because checkmate moves aren't one-time events. They're indicators of a new operating level. This operating level comes with new expectations, both from you and from others. You're expecting more honesty from people, more clarity, more effort, more coherence, more alignment. And if they can't offer that, you're prepared to detach without drama. That detachment is your strength, not avoidance, not coldness, just clarity about what drains you and what aligns with you. And as you become more aligned internally, the world around you starts revealing who genuinely stands with you and who only stood with your old version. Some people will reveal themselves through distance. Some will reveal themselves through tension. Some will reveal themselves through hesitation. Some will reveal themselves through unexpected respect. But they will reveal themselves. That's the natural reaction to someone who steps into strategic self-awareness. You're not meant to carry everyone into this next chapter. You're meant to move with precision, with intention, with clarity. And that clarity will pull the right individuals toward you and push the wrong ones away without you forcing anything. All you have to do is continue operating from the same place you operated from in that moment. The place of discipline, patience, observation, calculated movement. And as this unfolds, you'll notice something even more profound. You're beginning to trust your silence, not as a retreat, but as a decision. You're beginning to value your attention, not as something to give freely, but as something to allocate wisely. You're beginning to understand that every move doesn't need to be loud to be effective. That sometimes the most effective move is the one nobody sees coming until it's already done. That's assassin-level execution. That's psychological checkmate. That's the power you stepped into without even trying to perform. And now that it's activated, there's no going back. Not mentally, not emotionally, not energetically. You can feel the threshold shift inside you. You can feel the old patterns dissolving. You can feel your instincts sharpening. You can feel your confidence grounding itself without permission from anyone. And whether they admit it or not, everyone around you feels it too. Because when someone activates this level of strategic precision, there's only one direction left for them to move, forward, sharper than before, into a version of themselves that's only getting more dangerous with every step.